Hello everyone, and welcome to this next instalment of Stockfish's opening repertoire. We looked in the previous video at 1d4, d5 and the semi-Slav. Now we're going to have a look at the other possibilities. So after c4, we are going to start with d takes c4, the Queen's Gambit Accepted. Now, all of the engines are pretty keen on 3e4. Always thought in human terms to be the most critical line. But Stockfish, and I let it analyze for hundreds and thousands of millions of nodes because I was a little bit surprised about it, comes up with something very unusual. Knight f6, e3, a6, bishop c4. This is the old-fashioned classical line. And now many moves have been played here. a4, bishop b3, bishop d3, queen e2, knight c3, rook e1 even, the immediate e4, d takes c5, mustn't forget that one, going off into an ending. But what Stockfish plays is bishop e2. And that was pretty much unplayed at the time that I was playing the Queen's Gambit Accepted non-stop in the 1990s. So what is Stockfish's main line here? It's c takes d4, knight takes d4, e5, knight f3, knight c6 and knight c3, and essentially you're just going to try and play a slightly better endgame. White's got a lead in development. This e5 pawn, well, gaining space, but it's also exposed. We've got some chances on the light squares as well, and one particularly important idea that Stockfish has got is it plays this move bishop c4 in reply to bishop e6, with the idea that after bishop c4 bc, well, knight d5 is going to be a rather irritating follow-up. And we've also got rook b1 here to attack the pawn on b7. And the black king can't castle queenside, of course, because the rook on d1 is stopping it. So, I mean, very, very interesting. It looks like definitely like a small edge. Actually, this idea bishop e2 has been played by Vladimir Yepishin against Romain Edouard, Coletta 2018. Yepishin was very good in finding little ideas like this for finding life in quiet positions. But this bishop e2 idea is definitely very interesting. Knight bd7 is also another idea. It's actually been played by Levon Aronian against Ding, Chesscom 2021. So you can see that it's been getting some high-level attention. b3, b6, knight e5, bishop b7. I mean, these ideas of playing b6 with black not playing b5, I think I was one of the first to do that in the Queen's Gambit Accepted. You sort of play a hedgehog and you don't expose your queen side to undermining with a4. It's quite interesting. This was Ding against Aronian, and now instead of Aronian's queen c7, then Stockfish recommends this line: knight d7, bishop a3, knight d2, takes, and well, I mean, White's got a little edge here. I mean, it's a touch uncomfortable for black, this. I'm sure you can defend it with good defense, but not necessarily a total walk in the park there. 0.31 for White, according to Stockfish, but definitely a very interesting line to look at. 7 bishop e2. You'll definitely catch your opponents unaware if you do this pretty soon. So after c4, well, let's have a look at e6, knight c3. I mean, c6 was the semi-Slav, what we looked at, but there are quite a few different moves here. I mean, there's the Queen's Gambit Declined ideas. There's bishop e7, first of all. And then here Stockfish wants to play this line, which is just to go for a Carlsbad structure and then just develop and try and restrict black's pieces from developing. We're actually following a game Alexandrov against Cheng, Batumi 2018 here. Again, slightly unusual idea. I hadn't seen this idea of going h3 and g4 like this. Black took on b3 in that game. Bishop b6 is Stockfish's idea. Then bishop h6, stop the king from castling. Knight e4, bishop d3, knight a6, takes, knight e4, knight b4. Doesn't look that great to me for White. I mean, black 2 bishops, reasonably compact pawn structure. Stockfish says 0.28, but yeah, it doesn't look absolutely amazing. But quite an interesting idea. I hadn't really seen this idea of just going h3, allowing the bishop to f5 and then chasing it again with g4 there. Might catch an opponent by surprise. I mean, after knight c3, I mean, why do you play bishop e7? It's actually to avoid, instead of playing knight f6, it's actually to avoid white being able to play bishop g5 and to pin the knight. Now, Komodo Dragon was very much into c6. Oops, good lord, pardon me. C6, e3, and then bishop f5. And then this ending, queen f3, takes, queen takes, and takes. A possibility. What Stockfish goes for, funnily enough, is the AlphaZero approach. And AlphaZero did this many times against Stockfish 8, and then played this move. I mean, the key point of playing h6, it's to get the pawn out of the attack of the bishop and queen, and it allows black to play a very quick knight h5, which actually stops white from playing this lovely central plan with f3 and e4. And well, certainly Stockfish 8 had big difficulties in finding a plan. And well, I mean, it's in there's a great game called the Rook's Pawn Symphony, which is in Game Changer, and there's also a video on the Game Changer website. The link is in the PGN that I provide there. And yeah, you know, I mean, really amazing games like this. But well, Stockfish just finds a little bit of an edge for white there, but it's nothing amazing at all. So I mean, these lines, yeah, again, they look, yeah, you know, pretty decent for black. And again, you know, this line of AlphaZeros in this Queen's Gambit Declined really looks very, very solid. Well, after knight c3, there's another Queen's Gambit type of thing, which is 3a6. I mean, in some ways, I'm quite annoyed about this move. This is a move of David Janowsky's. Yeah, played around the early 1900s, and you know, I did actually think about this move because it's quite similar to a Queen's Gambit Accepted. You know, you'll be threatening to go d takes c4 and b5, but yeah, you know, as always with so many of these ideas that you thought about in the pre-computer age, you sort of said to yourself, you know, come on, if it was really worth playing, you know, then somebody else would have played it, you know, and then you go on to the order of the day and your main lines. But yeah, this has become quite big in recent years, and seems to be scoring quite well for black. So c takes d5, e d5, knight f3, and now c6 is Stockfish's main line. Bishop f4, bishop d6, takes, e3, bishop f5, and now this move knight h4, just trying to stop the bishop from establishing itself there so that the white bishop can go to d3 after. Bishop e6 is Stockfish's novelty here. Queen b3, queen e7, knight f3, knight f6, bishop d3, castles, and knight e4. And this is quite pleasant for well, it's a little bit more pleasant for white, but it's not so bad for black. I mean, the black knight comes to d6, which is pretty cool. Very nice square for the knight in these sort of structures, defending the pawn on b7. But white plays knight c5, and yeah, the one drawback to the pawn on a6 here, you can't play b6 just to chase away the knight. So yeah, I mean, Stockfish gives white a 0.48 advantage. In general, you know, I do find that the engines tend to overestimate white's advantage in these types of positions. Yeah, and then generally, you know, we saw it in the super final that you know, the engines have enormous difficulties making any progress in these lines. I mean, Stockfish managed against Komodo, but it was yeah, very, very, very fraught, you know, and Komodo got nowhere really with white against Stockfish in a very good version actually of this line. So yeah, I mean, this one doesn't look bad at all. Maybe not particularly inspiring for black in terms of playing for a win, but again, also a pretty good solid line here. The final thing is the Tarasch with c5, one of my favourite openings with black. Actually, Stockfish spends a long time considering the Tarrasch killer, really. The move that really doesn't make you want to play this line very much, which is d takes c5, which essentially just liquidates to a position that where white is just white's got all the chances for a win or a draw, and black's only got chances for a draw. I mean, it's this line: bishop takes c5, knight c5, queen a5, and there's various ways of playing it. Bishop d2, I think the engines think is more promising, or there's also this one, when you'll get the idea of what I mean: takes, queen takes, and bishop takes e3. White's got the 2 bishops, but it's a pretty even position. I mean, I drew this sort of position against Visyananda's black without much difficulty, so I'm tending to think that you know, if I do that, then I sort of think, well, you know, this should be quite eminently drawable. But yeah, it's just a real pain in terms of playing the Tarrasch for a winner's black. You know, it's yeah, sort of knocks it out of the water really. But Stockfish doesn't really see enough chances in that, and it goes for the main line. The intriguing thing is that you know, I mean, there's been 60, 70 years of black playing bishop e7 and castling. And Stockfish actually goes for this move bishop c5, which was first played unsuccessfully by Salve in 1911, also taken up by Frank Marshall, which isn't always you know, a sign of good opening taste. Certainly with black, he played a lot of very risky stuff. But it's recently been played at the top level by Dubov in particular, and well, it's Stockfish's favourite move. And yeah, what can I say? This sort of position that black is playing, you know, it feels like it should be just, you know, very nice for white, but yeah, the engine seemed to manage to hold this very, very easily. Just a 0.50 advantage for white. I mean, I'm not sure I'd recommend this to human black players unless you really looked at this very carefully. It's very easy to drift, to end up getting tied down or losing a pawn and then just being a pawn down in a rook ending, which is you know, slightly cheerless. But interesting that Stockfish thinks that this is, you know, the most concrete and best of all the Tarrasch lines. The other thing to look at is the actual Slav. So that's d4, d5, c4, and then c6. One of my favourites in my professional days. Funnily enough, just like Koivisto, Stockfish is also very keen on the exchange Slav, spends a lot of time on it, and finds some interesting things. I mean, knight f6, knight c3, this is a well-known line. You get chased away, then you go back to c2, and then you go here, and black's got to try and find some way of exploiting this opposition of the rook on c8 to the queen on c2. Obviously, on the downside, this light squared bishop is inside the pawn chain, and white's got access to e5, and that knight might be great coming into c4, or it might just be useless on a5. So yeah, I mean, we're following a game so far, Dubov against Kovalenko, 2022, and here actually Stockfish likes this idea of knight h5 and knight c4, really getting the knights active, then putting this knight onto d6, and well, you know, this knight on d6, it helps covers a lot of squares, central squares, and you can also just play, you know, bishop takes c3. I mean, what Stockfish wants is e4 here. This is a novelty over a game, Stremavicius against Nasuta, Lednica, 2022. And yeah, I mean, Stockfish gives white a slight advantage here. Looks to me a little bit like Steinitz against Zutercourt, actually, or Zutercourt-Steinitz rather. But it doesn't look that bad at all for black, and 0.40 advantage. But you know, I think a draw would be odds on here. But still quite interesting that Stockfish, you know, sees a lot of chances in the exchange Slav, and of course that means that it's not only the main line that you've got to consider. There are probably quite a lot of interesting things in a lot of sidelines as well. So maybe worth investigating together with the engine. After c6, however, the main line that Stockfish wants is knight f3, and after knight f6, funnily enough, sometimes, you know, Stockfish will go for knight c3. But its main line was e3, which is a slow Slav. e3, bishop f5, knight c3. I've played this quite a lot as white recently. I do quite enjoy the positions. You know, in the pre-computer age, light squared bishop outside the pawn chain equals draw. But yeah, in the computer age, the computers have helped us see much deeper than that. And yeah, I mean, this is a line. Actually, I think there was we maybe saw this line in a recent World Software Chess Championship, a game between the Baron and Leela, which Mr. Beads will definitely remember because Leela won it. And knight bd7, queen b3, queen b6, bishop e2, bishop e7, takes castles, and white's just got a slight advantage here. You know, I mean, 2 bishops, smooth pawn structure. a little bit more space. Yeah, I mean, when you consider the state of all sorts of other openings, you know, this was the sort of thing that you would have sort of taken as the absolute minimum. Nowadays, you're just praising God to the skies that you can have such an advantage as whites, you know, out of the opening. And, well, Stockfish gives it 0.39, so just a slight advantage. But, yeah, definitely worth looking at there. If you force Stockfish to play knight c3, then it just wants to play e6, e3, going back into the Moran, in actual fact, the queen c2 Moran. If you force Stockfish to play queen d takes c4, then after nearly a million nodes of analysis, then actually Stockfish wants to do just like Koivisto and play e6. So Komodo Dragon preferred bishop f5, the old-fashioned way, but e6 is the idea. And then, you know, this just goes to some sort of odd semi-Tarrasch where, you know, white has the extra move a4 because black's played c6 and c5. But yeah, who knows? Is a4 really an advantage? Kind of difficult to say. And yeah, so it's this IQP position here. Castles, rook d1, knight b4 to stop d4 to d5, bishop g5, bishop d7. And then, well, we're following a game, Rodstein against Hansen 2011. And I mean, this is well known also without the pawn on a4. And basically, you know, black's chances of making a draw, if black is well prepared, are very high because black's pieces are very active here. And after queen a5, there's this novelty rook b8. A6 was played in Rodstein Hansen. Takes, rook d4, g6, and queen d6. And yeah, you know, the black queen and you know, is just very active here. And as long as you're well prepared, you're going to end up making a draw here. So that's the Slav. Interesting, this line a4 e6. Definitely worth looking at, you know, for yeah, an interesting black possibility, you know, maybe to hold a draw against a stronger player. So that was the last of the sensible d4, d5 stuff. Next up, we are going to have a look at d4, knight f6. And once again, we'll split that up into multiple videos because there's a lot of unusual stuff in there. See you there.